Okay, I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this. I don't know why I do it. Ah, let's talk about Shamima Begum. I'm Granny Opterix. Some of you might not be familiar with that name. At the age of 15, having watched some wonderfully artistic ISIS videos online showing the brave warriors of Islam beheading dissenters, selling 10-year-old girls as concubines, and forcing women into bin bags, and having come to the conclusion that she wanted a piece of the action, accompanied by two friends, Shamima Begum took off for Syria, where I still assume that they got some help from someone at the airport passport control, but yeah, that's by the way. The three of them went over to Syria to help ISIS fulfill its ambition of establishing an anti-British, anti-Christian, murderous, imperialistic caliphate in the Levant. And to that end, they fully knew what was going on in Syria and Iraq. And what was going on was not very nice. Further, of course, this was just a step to conquering the globe, and it's obvious that Ms. Begum lusted after the sort of privileged position that a Muslim would be in that sort of a world. To hell with conscience and liberal society and all the rest of it. Well, it didn't work out quite like that, did it? Miss Begum, having been found in a Syrian DP camp, was stripped of her British citizenship by the then Home Secretary, Sajid Javid, using the British Nationality Act of 1981. I made a couple of videos about the matter at the time, and I took the unpopular position that Shamima Begum, described by the journalist who interviewed her as a manipulator, and I would add my description of her as a sociopath. Nevertheless, I took the unpopular view that as a British subject, it just so happens that she is our manipulative sociopath. I know a lot of people were outraged about my opinion 3 or 4 years ago, whenever it was, and a lot will be outraged now. But I do urge you to consider what happened since. After Javid used the 1981 British Nationality Act, which wasn't that easy to do, but he managed to exclude her on the grounds that letting her in would be prejudicial to public interest, something like that. He had to do that to keep Begum out of the country. But since then, the law was tightened up. In 2014, it was made easier to exclude somebody like Begum. But then the law got even stricter and less accountable with the Nationality and Borders Act of 2022. In that law, rather surrealistically, the government has the power to remove citizenship from someone without telling them. Yeah, I mean, officially that's somebody you know did wrong and you can't find them anymore to tell them. But even so, they are just excluded. Now, look, Begum isn't the only manipulator here, is she? Bad laws are made when public opinion is so outraged by the crimes of someone who is admittedly a blot on the face of humankind that we're easily manipulated into allowing dangerous laws to go through. The problem is that when we make laws that apply to the most rotten of criminals, the most despicable of people, what usually happens is that those laws end up getting applied to the least guilty, and the most guilty are usually too difficult to deal with and end up getting away with things. And that leads me back to my older videos about Begum. In one of them, I reminded us all that she is a nasty piece of work who's probably dangerous for us, but worse than that, she is a distraction. There are hundreds of Islamic fundamentalists who did far worse than her and just walked back into the country. Nobody talks about them. There are Hamas generals who have been given council houses in Hendon, of all places. Hendon is a rather heavily Jewish area of North London. And yet a whole carnival is being made out of Begum. Begum's a distraction. Her pillorying is a huge piece of theatre to make us think that the government is actually doing something. They're not. They're letting criminals and terrorists in by the boatload every day, by the plane load every day. And then on top of that, they're making bad laws that appear to be applied to a national villain like Begum, but which will end up being used against us, ordinary citizens. And that's what I think about the Begum case. All right, till next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Grambo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.